Welcome to Halal Money Matters. I'm Christopher Patton.
And I'm Monem Salam.
We're recording on Zoom again, but
maybe not for long though.
Yeah.
Looking like vaccines are coming through, and
yeah, we'll hopefully be able to talk in person again soon. We have another wonderful guest for this episode.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I've known him for a long time. To be honest with you, ever since I was sophomore in college, and so it's really nice to be able to do another type of a meeting with him where I'm not just just learning from him, but really talking to him about what he's been able to do in his life.
Yeah, Dr. Yaqub Mirza is with us today, entrepreneur, business leader, author, and kind of a pioneer in Islamic investing in the United States.
So what we're going to do, Chris, is we're going to talk a little bit about the history of the Amana Mutual Funds, the early days of both him and Nick Kaiser starting up the funds. And then another exciting part of it will be about his book that he came out with.
Yeah, 5 Pillars of Prosperity. I have read the book and I have had the pleasure of speaking with him before, and I'm excited to do it again.
Let's do it. So we're really happy today to have Dr. Mirza on the podcast with us. Just on a personal level, I really have a lot of respect for him. I've actually, ever since I was in college and graduating and wanted to get into this field of investing in general, but specifically Islamic investing, was the first person I called to ask him for that advice was Dr. Mirza. So I don't know if you remember that or not, Dr. Mirza, but that was, I remember that conversation very well. So thank you for doing all that you do. So I wanted to start off, and really talk a little bit about the evolution and history of the Amana Funds, and really get into kind of the impetus for it, the initial discussions, and talking a little bit about where the guidelines were set up and those type of things. So let's to start off, and maybe I'll just ask you a question, and that is, what was the kind of the spark that made you think about launching the funds back in 1984, or maybe it was prior to that even, maybe?
Yeah, good question. Basically, when I came here in 1970 as a student, we did not have any good place to invest, which is Sharia compliant or Islamically acceptable. And some of the people I knew, they were investing in utility stocks, but they were just picking, one utility versus the other. But there was no mutual fund which was available. So decided to form an investment club, which have a national association in Michigan. And that investment group kind of worked pretty nicely. We didn't have a lot of money, but it sort of gave me the idea that pooled investment is the way to go. We came back to the United States in 1981, and then we had a similar group in Plainfield, Indiana. And then a thought occurred to me that if this can work at a local community level, why don't we consider something which can be available to Muslims throughout US? And so I started thinking about it. We went to 1 or 2 law firms in Indianapolis. They gave me $50,000 as an estimate. That was a lot of money for me in 1983. And so one of the attorneys mentioned to me that, do you know Nick Kaiser? I told him no. And he said, well, I think you should go and talk to him. He might have some ideas. So I said, okay. So I called on Nick. I was young Yaqub at that time. I went to see him and we talked. And after he listened to me, basically he said, well, right now I manage 5 funds and I'm willing to take on a 6th one. So he was very kind, very gracious. He had one of his in-house attorney to work with me, whereas they did all the SEC work where we helped them to supply or give them the Islamic requirements. I was working at North American Islamic Trust at that time. And so I reported that to the board that this conversation is happening. And then Nick came over in one of the board meetings and met with the trustees. And thereafter, we just worked and filed with the SEC. So we did that, and we started with Amana Income Fund. Nick was very smart. He set it up as a series of funds, a trust with a series of funds which can be added later. So we started with the income fund, and then later we added the growth fund.
So, just out of curiosity, you mentioned about talking about the Islamic guidelines. When you had your investment club, were you already kind of operating on and kind of working on perfecting those Islamic guidelines, or was that something you only did once you started discussions with starting up the Amana Funds?
We were using those Islamic guidelines, and of course, over time, with the help of Saturna, they have been further refined. But we were using it. The basic screens which you also use now, we were using. We will not invest in liquor, casinos, banks, any company dealing with large amount of debt. So these were the very first screens which we used. We did not have the financial screens at that time or had the ability to actually screen out stocks. So that's the way we started. And those screens were sort of handed over to Saturna, well, at that time, a unified management, and they started with those screens, which have been improved on over a period of time.
Great, thank you. And then also, you said that the SEC was giving you a little bit of an issue, but it wasn't really regarding the screens. It was more about what you did with the cash, right?
Well, before that, I think some of the questions which they asked, this was the first Islamic fund, and they had not seen anything like that before. So it was something new, and they were just not sure, how it's going to work. So they had different questions we answered. But one of the last questions was related to cash, and which was obvious because they felt that rate of return may be less than the other mutual funds. Therefore, we need to make a disclosure.
And was it only a matter of disclosure, or did you come up with another solution for the cash?
At that time, it was basically disclosure. But over time, we had different solutions. But at that time, it was a matter of disclosure. As you know, you basically need to not be very creative, but respond to their concerns and say, well, you want a disclosure? Here it is. And this was, so I met Nick in the beginning of 1984 while I was visiting with different law firms and whatnot. And then we moved on May 1st to Virginia, and I continued working with Nick and doing all the filings and whatever was required.
That's great. And there's a lot of urban legends that are out there, and one of the ones that I've heard is that at that time I think there was a requirement for the Wall Street Journal to list you. You had to have a certain amount of shareholders. Do you know this story? Have you ever heard this? I don't know if it's urban legend or if it's true or not. Can you talk a little bit about that? That was really interesting to me when I heard about it.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the story, but I know that we need to have 1,000 investors, or there was a size also matters for Wall Street to list us. So for some time, we couldn't get a quoted value or be listed in Wall Street or any other major newspaper, the business section of the newspaper. And until we reached that threshold, we were not able to have that. And we had to call unified management or Saturna to get the fair market value of that day. But over time, we passed that threshold, and thank God we were able to get the quotation listed.
So the story that I heard, and this is from a shareholder, I was maybe about a decade ago, maybe a little longer, as I was going through some of those accounts and talking to some older shareholders and stuff, I noticed that their cash balances were very small. So when I looked into it, all of them had started off with an investment of $25. And I was like, that's kind of interesting. So when I just happened to know one of them who was an uncle. And so what he told me is that there was a significant amount of time that was spent calling a lot of your friends and family and other people in the Muslim community. They say, can you please put in $25 so we can get to 1,000 shareholders, so then we can start getting listed in the Wall Street Journal. So that's the story I heard. I didn't know if that was true or not, but it was really interesting.
Yeah,
I like it.
Yeah, I think, to some extent, but as you know, $250 was the minimum to open an account. And $25 remind me a different story. In my office at that time, we had 30 employees. And in one of the staff meetings, I told them, please open your retirement account, I believe it was for $25. And, and we will give you the money. So actually, our office gave that money to the employees and told them to fill in the application and open your accounts. And sure enough, all of them did that. I had forgotten the story, but about 3 years ago, when I was in Bellingham, Nick mentioned that to the crowd, that there was a time when Yaqub did that. Then I said, I remember, oh yeah, that's true.
That's good.
So
Yes.
you mentioned that it's a new thing at the time. So how do you get the word out? How do you let people know that this is an option now?
Yeah, I think, I was very much involved with the Muslim Student Association, which then sort of transformed into Islamic Society of North America in 1981-82. So being active, I was participating in many of the seminars, conferences, and Islamic Society of North America also have a magazine, Islamic Horizon, which reaches out to all the members. That used to be very popular magazine, even now it is quite popular. And we used to get our news through that magazine because, the internet was not there, there was no Facebook. And therefore, we kind of look forward to getting this monthly magazine to see what is happening among the Muslim community. So that was pretty much the way of telling people that this option is available. And then we wrote an article in Islamic Horizon very early that was written basically to say that here is an alternative available to us. And maybe that explains, Chris, to the extent that the rate of growth in the early part of Amana was not that great as compared to the last 5-6 years.
Mm. Well, when you're talking about but maybe moving forward a little bit, how does it feel to see people embracing the fund now after working so hard to get the word out and build this, or in the early days?
No, it's great. I'm very, very happy and thankful to all of you and to God. I take great pride. I mentioned it in Malaysia when I was introducing Anwar Ibrahim that Saturna is one of my favorite company because it sort of embodies a lot of values which I hold dearly. It's basically tight ship, control your expenses, don't speculate, don't borrow money, and treat people like a family. I know Nick likes to call you Saturna crew, call Marjack team about people. So I think really Saturna is one of my favorite company, and of course the personal relationship which I have with all of you, adds to it.
Yeah. So I mean, you mentioned a little bit about this regarding Marjack, and so in your, I mean, this is the Amana Funds, and something that you created for the funds was more of a community or social entrepreneurship for you. But your real kind of work that you do is actually in private equity, all right? And that's where Marjack comes from.
Yeah, that is very true, but it has a social entrepreneurship angle to it because most of the profit we make are used for charitable purposes. So as you know, recently we created Center for Islam in the Contemporary World at Shenandoah University. So 3 families who are investors in Marjack Poultry, Alabama, Mississippi, have volunteered to fund the center. And so much of the profit which we make, sure, it is for profit. We do like money, but at the same time, we are committed to social entrepreneurship and doing charitable activities which are helpful to the community and for the betterment of the community. Like Amana, what the University Islamic Finance has done is also helping the community. It's basically a service which we provide to the community because the way I see it, to help our community members to do things right is a mission itself. And I take pride in saying that you're offering a service where people can invest Islamically and feel happy that they have done it the right way. Providing an alternative and having people to do in the proper way is a bit of a mission itself. Now, while Marjack is only for profit, I admit that, but even then we are providing halal chicken. And I know many people don't care who buys from us. 85% of our chicken is sold to general audience, about 15% is sold as halal. But it is the right way to do it. It is more pure. It is more acceptable to USDA, the way we process it. And therefore, We do it because we feel that whatever we do, we should do it right, and we should do it according to our beliefs.
So the 85% are actually getting halal chicken and they don't even know it's halal.
Yeah.
Right. And
yeah,
that's
in the
really good.
South, in Mississippi.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's, I mean, it's an amazing thing to be able to do, where you can, you can weave the Islamic values into your business, your life, and people just think it's just the right thing to do, and they don't really know, or might not even care about whether it's Islamic or not. So that's, I mean, it's an amazing thing to be able to do that. But also, one of the things that you've also done amongst all of the different different charitable ventures and those type of things, is you've actually also written a book, and wanted to talk a little bit about the kind of the starting from that, what gave you the idea. The book is called 5 Pillars of Prosperity, and we're going to get into a little bit more, but I wanted to kind of get an idea of why you thought it was important to have something like this, and what motivated you to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Monem. It's interesting you ask this question. As you know, I used to give seminars and speak at different conferences, convention, and talking about investing and so on and so forth. And then I got more interested into a little bit of financial planning and a little bit of estate planning. So I learned quite a bit of that, which also led me to learn more about inheritance. So I started learning about distribution of inheritance, wills and trust, and so on and so forth. Then at IIIT we started the Fairfax Institute, which was basically a teaching arm of IIIT, and we sort of offered different courses. One of the courses was on entrepreneurship in Islam, faith-based investing, faith-based financial management, and things of that sort. So I then developed and put together some material for these courses. These courses were like, I believe, 5 sessions over 2 months period.
This is an International Institute of Islamic Thought, correct? And that's the
right.
IIIT.
International Institute of Islamic Thought. Yeah, IIIT.
And are those courses still available
the TFI,
now?
I'm not sure if they're available at this point.
Okay.
But they were repeated and they were, available. This is like, 8-9 years ago. One of the sessions, Salma, which is lady, and I mentioned that in the book. She said, or she sent me an email. She said, "I really benefited from your course, but why don't you, write a book?" And I kind of, said to myself, "Gosh, I never thought of writing a book. It's going to take a lot of time, a lot of energy, and do I have the time to do this?" And then finally, I decided to put some of this material together. I wasn't very sure whether this is worth publishing or not. And then I approached 3 people. One was Professor John Esposito. He is the Islamic scholar in Georgetown University. And I thought, he's a big known scholar. Let's see what his view is. So he read it and he said, "I give a copy to my wife. She is a CFO in one of the Fortune 500 companies, and she loved it." And he said, "Yeah, this is very good material." So then I asked him, will he be willing to write a blurb? He said, yes, he'll be willing to write a blurb, and which he did, which is on the cover. The second person was Governor John Sununu, who was the chief of staff of President Bush, the father. And he's a good friend. He and I will serve on a board together. And so I gave it to him. So he said, "Yaqub, it's going to take me some time, but I'll be very happy to read it." So he took the manuscript on one of his flights overseas. And he came back and he called me and said, "Yaqub, I'm going to be in DC on Wednesday. Can you come and see me?" I said, "Sure." So I went and saw him, and lunch with him. And so he went through page by page, and he said, his remarks were, "Tell this to the administration, tell this to Congress, tell this to this department." So I was very fascinated. And I still have those handwritten box, that folder with me. Third person was Gary Moore. He runs a financial seminary. He was on Wall Street. He is a pastor, a Southern Baptist pastor, but he believed in ethics in business very, very much. So I read one of his book, Finances 101, and in which he, talks about some of these ethics, and he actually says that Jews, Christians, and Muslims have a lot in common when it comes to investing and so on and so forth. So I said, it won't hurt. Let me just ask him if he would be willing to read it. I sent him a copy, and he wrote back. He was very excited. He said, "We don't have anything like this, and maybe my Christian brothers will write something like that. This is wonderful, and it's great." So after I got these three people encouraging me, I kind of felt that I have to get serious and need to devote some time and try to write it, put it together. And then we sent it to White Cloud Press. The first press I approached, publishing house, they accepted it, and they said we'll be happy to publish it. So that's pretty much the story of how it started and how it ended.
So something I really like about the book is that it's full of really tangible examples, tables and worksheets and things like that. Was it important to you to try to make it real for the readers and kind of empower them to be able to directly apply what you're talking about to their lives?
Yeah, definitely, Chris. I felt that I can talk about my life, where I grew, what I did, and all that. But people are not going to, duplicate that because that's my life. But where I can help people will be to actually give them some examples. How I saved $200 a month when I was in a graduate school, how I tried to, minimize expenses, and share with them practical examples. And especially, my focus was the young couples and young adults, because if they adopt some of those habits of saving money, then the rest of their life they will have a wonderful time. And as I'm sure you noticed, I emphasize delay gratification and save for the future. And that to me is very important because you can spend all what you have, you can kick up your heels, you can enjoy what God has given us, but then for later years, for education, children education, their marriages, all that you won't have much even to retire on. So the focus was to save, delay the gratification, and enjoy the bounties later when you really have time and you can afford to enjoy them.
Mm. Yeah, one of the things that that was really good was if you look at the five pillars that you have: earning, saving, investing, spending, and giving. It kind of goes through the life cycle of a person. Not in a timeline order, but definitely on a circular basis. You're giving throughout your life, but then you're really giving a lot when you pass away. You're earning throughout your life as well. Those type of things. So I really found that to be something that was, I think it applies to everybody.
Yeah, I agree with you. They kind of go in a circle because you cannot do one without the other, because you cannot save if you don't earn, and if you don't earn, then you can't give out. So really, but let me share with you a very interesting story. When I put it all together, I had 4 pillars, and I kept saying, if I can think of one more, then it will rhyme with 5 pillars of Islam. And there are lots of 5 pillars. If you Google 5 pillars, you will find 5 pillars of hip hop and all kinds of things. So we were performing Umrah. I was at Makkah, and after the afternoon prayer, Asr prayer, I was walking back from Kaaba to the hotel, and it just dawned on me, Yaqub, why not first pillar should be earnings? And the reason I did not think of it is because we often don't talk about money. Most of our mosques or churches or synagogue, they never talk about money. I know Monem, Salam, you do, but other people, they don't. The imams just shy away from money. They think money is dirty. I don't know where we get that impression. As Susie Orman had said, maybe it is from our childhood when a baby is crawling or a kid is crawling, and you take a dime or a quarter, and what do we do is the child puts it in the mouth, and the mama screams, don't do that, don't do that. But we get the impression that maybe money is dirty, so we take it out, we throw it away. So somehow that that thing is, going around. Everybody thinks that money is dirty. And then, as you know, many of the people who tend to be, who feel they're more religious, they don't want to talk about money. They think money is just not something that should be acquired and we should desire for it or pray for it or acquire it. And it becomes a taboo. Nobody ever wants to, just talk about it.
I was going to say that it's interesting that you the last one that you had was earning, because that's the one that I felt you kind of delve into pretty detail with the 8 qualities that you mentioned as well. And I'll just quickly go over those, but then maybe you can talk about how you came up with these ideas: the gratitude, strong work ethic, focus, persistence, passion, integrity, high standard, and service. So I mean, you kind of break down each of these things, which to me, out of all of these things, kind of makes that kind of the crux of your basically like the foundation of the 5 pillars. It's the one that keeps all the other ones standing as well.
Yeah, you're right. So once I decided that I need to write something on earnings, then I looked at all the businesses we had or we have. Some of these, the qualities which you read, this is what we practice in most of our businesses, and they have produced results. So I think really those are the things which we practice in the business, and then I try to sum them up as qualities which we should have when we run a business.
Just so kind of looking at all 5 of them, and maybe I'll give you 3 different scenarios, and you can help me figure out. So if in different stages of your life, and maybe you need to focus on 1 out of the 5, or maybe not. I'll let you decide. But what if let's say give 3 different scenarios, right? So now I'm just graduating from college. What should I be focusing on out of the 5? Or maybe you say no, you should focus on all 5 of them at the same time. So first one would be just graduating from college. The second one would be now I'm in my middle years, right? I have kids that are just about to get into college now, and I've done whatever the book had told me. And the last one is now I'm beginning to I'm maybe on my sunset part of my life, which is I've retired. I'm giving back to the community now. So why don't you talk a little bit about, do you give different advice to different stages of people's life, or is it all the same?
Yeah, on the as fresh graduate, get yourself settled, get yourself established, and focus on saving. Whatever little you get, try to save some percentage of it, and then give out. And as you move on in your life, you will have more money, then you can focus on investing, planned spending, and others.
Okay, thank you. And then what about toward the middle and the end? You're basically saying the same thing, would be just kind of maybe focus less on the earnings part of it, but then more on the giving.
Yes, you can. And the earning part, you're pretty much established in your career. You already have a title. You are comfortable, and you are you're happy, and you have pretty defined earning stream. But then you need to start thinking about children education. So you will go into ESA, education saving accounts. Start thinking about children education, then children marriages, and your own retirement. You need to start thinking about Hajj, and then of course giving. So those are some of the things. So the priority might shift, but saving part will still have to be pretty much with you. So I think savings, being modest, being humble about how we live. Then as we progress in our age, my kind of feeling is that once you pass 60, we should be more thinking about contributing to the endowments. We should be thinking about hereafter. We should be thinking about a perpetual charity, sadaqah jariyah, what we're going to take with us. And by that age, your kids are grown, they have education, they have jobs, and you don't have to give them much. And then start contributing to the endowment. So as I said in my book, the older people, 60 plus, they should contribute to the endowments, but the younger people, they should contribute to run Islamic schools and the Islamic centers, because they are now the main recipient of all the services.
Yeah, and I mean, you know, interestingly enough, I mean, you're a great example for people to follow. Is that even throughout your life, as you're getting older, and as you mentioned, earning more and getting your titles, there's always ways to be able to give back, even if it comes to Sadaqah Jariyah. I mean, you know, yes, the Amana Funds you know, that I would consider Sadaqah Jariyah, the you know, well into, you know, let's say 100 years from now, when it's still there, you're still going to be getting reward for it. And a lot of the things you do, your donor advice fund, all of those things that you've done, I think you have a very large mountain of good deeds for your Sadaqah Jariyah. I think, you know, that's going to continue on. So it's really a blessing. So thank you for doing all you do.
Oh, you're most welcome. Thank you so much. Just pray, and I hope that God will accept these. Ourselves, as a Mirza family, we have started the private foundation. We are training our children. They are now the board members of the Mirza Family Foundation, and we want to create a legacy, and we are training them to follow, so to speak, our footsteps and do better, and hopefully continue these projects.
Yeah, thank you for that. Chris, do you have anything else?
Yeah, we're winding down here, but I know there's a very technical answer to this question, but in terms of a feeling and in terms of a worldview and an outlook, what does it mean to you to invest Islamically?
You know, it is basically it comes from your upbringing, and you want to do things in the right way. If you have time, I can share with you. After getting master's degree, I was teaching in Karachi University, and then my brother graduated from University of Alaska, getting his PhD, came back, and he encouraged me that I should, come to the United States and get my PhD in physics. So I had the choice of coming through Tokyo in the Pacific route or going through the Atlantic route. But I preferred that I take the Atlantic route. Why? Because I wanted to go to Saudi Arabia to perform Umrah. And, people were saying, why don't you go to Tokyo and you can attend the Expo 70. It's a big expo. Imagine a young man, 23 years old, how tempting that could be, that let's go to Japan, everybody talks about it, and let's go and visit. Versus I thought, no, I'm going to go perform Umrah. And so I, went to Jeddah, and then on to Medina, performed Umrah, and then I came to the United States. So there is this desire which comes from upbringing, that you want to do the things the right way. And that then encompasses all aspects of your life, whether it is behavior, your family, friends, your attitude, your way of doing things. It sort of is a moral code. It guides your way of living. If you try to do things right, following the principle which God has laid down, then there is a blessing in what you do.
Please consider an investment's objectives, risks, charges, and expenses carefully before investing. To obtain this and other important information about the Amana Funds in a current prospectus or summary prospectus, please visit amanafunds.com or call toll-free 1-800-728-8762. Please read the prospectus or summary prospectus carefully before investing. Investing involves risk, including the risk that you could lose money. The Amana Funds restrict investments to those companies consistent with Islamic and sustainable principles, which limits opportunities and may affect performance. The values of the shares in each of the funds rises and falls as the value of the securities in which the funds invest go up and down. Each of the funds may invest in securities that are not traded in the United States. Investments in the securities of foreign issuers may involve risks in addition to those normally associated with investments in the securities of U.S. issuers. These risks include currency and market fluctuations and political or social instability. The risks of foreign investing are generally magnified in the smaller and more volatile securities markets of the developing world. The smaller and less seasoned companies that may be in the growth fund have a greater risk of price volatility. This material is for general information only and is not a research report or commentary on any investment products offered by Saturna Capital. This material should not be construed as an offer to sell or the solicitation of an offer to buy any security in any jurisdiction where such an offer or solicitation would be illegal. We do not provide tax, accounting, or legal advice to our clients
clients, and all investors are advised to consult with their tax, accounting, or legal advisors regarding any potential investment. Investors should not assume that investments in the securities and/or sectors described were or will be profitable. This podcast is prepared based on information Saturna Capital deems reliable. However, Saturna Capital does not warrant the accuracy or completeness of the information. Investors should consult with a financial advisor prior to making an investment decision. The views and information discussed in this commentary are at a specific point in time, are subject to change, and may not reflect the views of the firm as a whole. All material presented in this publication, unless specifically indicated otherwise, is under copyright to Saturna. No part of this publication may be altered in any way, copied, or distributed without the prior express written permission of Saturna Capital.